Welcome to the Black Experience at IU. My name is Khalil Muhammad, your host for the evening. Before we get started, I want to give a round of applause for our producer of last night and tonight's events, Miss JaWaun Kenreich. All right, so for those of you following along in the audience, just a quick reminder, if you could please switch your phone to silent because we are being recorded tonight by Radio TV. Also, we want to make this as natural and interactive as possible, so you all can follow along with us on Twitter just by utilizing the hashtag Let's Talk Black IU. Once again, it's Let's Talk Black IU. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or even we just want to key in on points that the panelists bring up, just be sure to utilize that hashtag. So before we get started, I kind of just want to allow the panelists to introduce themselves. So if you could feel free to basically mention your name, your year, your major, and any organizations that you're a part of. We'll start down there with you, Johnny.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Johnny Allen Jr. I'm a junior studying community health, and I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kayla Grant. I am a senior studying human development and family studies, also on a pre-med track, and I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ramir Williams. I am a senior studying sport communication broadcast. I am a vice president for the George Sally Sport Association.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Paige Drain. I'm currently a junior majoring in marketing, and I serve as the president of the Mu Beta Lambda Business Fraternity.
Hi, everyone. My name is Janai Weeks. I am a junior studying journalism, public relations, and a minor in business, and I am a leader with the Impact Movement Christian Organization.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Kenreich Smith. I'm a senior studying sport marketing and management with a minor in business, and I am the president of the George Sally Sport Association.
What's up? My name is Breland Davis. I'm a senior majoring in psychology and AAADS, and I'm a Fall 16 Initiative Alpha Phi Alpha.
Hello, my name is Kai Freeman. I'm a freshman. I'm majoring in English education, and I am a part of Freshman Action Team, and I serve as the president.
Hello, everyone. My name is Faith Gurton. I'm a sophomore majoring in psychology with a double minor in counseling and AAADS, and I am the founder and president of Campus Curls and Coils.
Hi, I'm Makta Michael. I'm a junior and community health major. Currently the philanthropy chair of African Student Association.
Once again, I am Khalil Muhammad, currently a senior, majoring in human development and family studies, and I'm currently the president of Black Student Union. So before we get started, I basically want to pose the question, feel free, anybody to chime in. What is your definition of the term minority?
I would define minority as anyone who is obviously not of the majority, but also someone who is just not represented in major spaces. So whether that be in education or just in society as a whole.
To add on to that, I would say the minority is the marginalized group.
I think that's important to note because a lot of times people will think of South Africa and think of the white population there as the minority group, but they're not necessarily the marginalized or minoritized group.
I also want to add that I feel like people also forget that minority includes other things than race and ethnicity, but also people of economic background, sexual orientation, gender, things of that sort.
So to get more of, a textbook definition, the definition of minority is a culturally, ethically, or racially distinct group that coexists with but is subordinate to a more dominant group. As the term is used in the social sciences, the subordinate to a more dominant group. As the term is used in the social sciences, this subordinary is the chief defining characteristic of a minority group. So let's look at the numbers really fast. So we as African Americans have been labeled as a minority here at the Indiana University in Bloomington, which would also require us to fall under the category of domestic students of color, which makes up 22% of the student population here at Indiana University. According to the annual report of the Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Multicultural Affairs for the 2017 and 2018 academic year, Black students make up 6.7% of the student population of IU. But why does it still feel as if we're still stuck at that same 4%?
That's a good one.
Well, I just kind of feel like, that's what I've been told since I've gotten here. So it never really dawned on me to like recheck the statistic. I just always thought it was 4.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree with you. I feel like at one point everyone was just really stuck on the disappointment of being at 4%. So when I heard that it was higher than that, I was kind of shocked. So I think that there needs to be times to like celebrate for that small growth, whether it's 0.05% or even 1%.
Right.
I agree. I think also we still feel like we're stuck at that 4% just because like we don't always see everybody. So when we walk in campus or, a lot of us have majors that are predominantly white. And so like, for example, at the Kelly School of Business, it's not a lot of black students who are pursuing that degree. So I think when, just checking on stuff like that, like just being present, we don't really see each other unless we like have something together like this.
And I find it also shocking that IU also pushes for diversity. I would think that they would emphasize the fact that they've grown in black students and in the black population, but that just not happening. So we just feel like we're stuck at the 4%.
And to add on to that, it's like when we see the student populace on campus, whether it be through different programs, whether it be the Group Scholars Program, whether it be the Hudson Hollis Scholars Program, we think of those students and we see those students, obviously, as there's programs that are had, but those are the only students that we see as when we go to these programs. So that's why we feel like we're still at that 4%, because that's the only students that we see on campus. Like, we don't see the students that are direct admitted into Kelly, and obviously they're busy, so they're not necessarily out as much. We don't see the students that are just direct admitted in general. So that's why it feels like, although we might be at a 6.7 or whatever the statistic may be, it still feels like we've been at that 4%.
I think, oh, sorry.
My bad. To piggyback off of what Ramiro was saying, I would say that it's also just something that really isn't notice heavy. Like in spaces like the Neil Marshall, for example, you kind of feel like you still see like the same students each time. So even if there is an increase in the amount of black students that go here, still not all students utilize the spaces that we have here for everyone to use. So I feel like if more of the black population utilize spaces like Neil Marshall, the group's office, or other spaces on campus that are for us, we would see the difference in the increase.
I would say that it's one of those things where it's like great, and we should celebrate that there is an increase in the numbers that are coming like from minority groups to the school, especially African Americans. But I think the reason that we don't really see it sometimes is because the numbers are increasing, but the support for the students aren't necessarily increasing along with it. So that's where it's like, okay.
Yeah. So I think that's when we go to the Neil Marshall and things like that. Like we're supposed to see black faces here. If we go to groups, we're supposed to see black faces there. But then when you go to Kelly and things like that, even though the number is growing, the black faces are still in the same spots as they've always been. So it seems like the environment isn't really supporting the growth, like what he was saying.
Yeah, and I feel like the main reason it still feels like 4% is because the feeling of us being at 4% was the feeling of being underrepresented, of what the actual world looks like. And 6% is still significantly lower than the real world, so we're still gonna feel the same way. So we're not gonna notice it much. It's a 2% bump in 50,000 students.
Okay. I know I'm not supposed to do this, but like I really just heard like a lot of you guys talk about how you didn't see, like you keep seeing the same faces and you're not seeing the new faces. Like I want to just kind of ask like why, and do you think there's a way that we can kind of do outreach to maybe the people that are transfers, or they maybe like started later on in life and they just feel like they can't connect with a lot of the black students who usually come to the Neil Marshall? Like how can we kind of bring those people in? Sorry.
I have something to say to that because I agree. In a kind of a story, back in 2010, my brother went here, and we were raised in a predominantly white area, and so all we hung out with is like white people, and so he ended up pledging a white frat, which is nothing wrong with that. But I was like, well, why didn't you pledge Divine Nine? He was like, well, I couldn't find anybody. So I feel like us also putting ourselves in the same spaces all of the time does not help to reach those students who are not able to know that the group's office is open, or know about the Neil Marshall, or know about other things, who come in and they're not on groups and they're direct admits, like, and they don't get that experience and stuff.
Excuse me. Kind of to answer Paige's question, I agree with that. Like when you think about certain spaces, like the orientation team, for example, like I was served as a member of that in the summer of 2017, but it doesn't really highlight a lot of the different opportunities that's out there for minority groups. It's really more focused on like the majority population. So I feel like as IUs, admissions team needs to be a little bit different on how they're like connecting these students to the different spaces, because I work at Neil Marshall as well, but they get like a list of black students that come in every year, but they're gonna get like a constant list, so like people can join, you know, either semester, different things like that, or like just not constantly like updated with that information. So I feel like that goes back to the university and their policies and how they're trying to do things and how they're running the offices like that.
I would even challenge the student leaders, like we're all leaders obviously, embracing like transfer students. Like I know me personally seeing a transfer student, I'm like, oh, I've never seen them before, and I just keep walking. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's not a familiar face, you know what I mean? But I challenge all of us as leaders to embrace those transfer students and let them know, hey, you know, I see you, you know what I mean? You're somebody that I haven't seen before, so let's try to get to know them.
I definitely agree with that. Every time I see a black person in Kelly that I've never seen, I'm like, hi, I'm Paige, where you been?
Right.
So I usually just like talk to them, I'm like, okay, like what year are you? I can get you connected. What type of class are you taking? Do you need help? Just because like, I know once you start going down, it's kind of hard to come back up just with like the different course loads you might have. So I definitely would say that because I was able to connect with someone who came back when he was a little bit older in his age, and I was just saying, hey, have you been able to connect with other students just to kind of get that help? And he said he hasn't. So just after that, we were able to stay in contact. I've just connected him with just other resources. So. And
I think that we need to, and representing just us being student leaders, as Kenreich just said, we need to challenge ourselves and the resources that we have as well. Like I said, back with groups, like we have Hudson and Holland, I feel like that a lot of us, when it comes to groups, group students hang out with group students, Hudson Holland students hang out with Hudson Holland students. So when you have students who don't necessarily have Hudson and Holland to go to, don't have groups to go to, don't have these different support areas, that's where they kind of fall off into the corners. So I feel like that we need to, although we're under an umbrella of DEMA, I feel like we're still particularly separated between our individual groups. So us as student leaders, us as a black community, we need to come together and actually work on getting all these individuals who are sitting there in the corner, because everybody, they're crying out for help. But we need to focus on, first of all, getting our individual support groups together that can offer us support, whether it be Hudson Holland offering groups offering Hudson and Holland, whether it be the different culture centers, whatever it may be. But we need to find a way to reach out to these students who necessarily, like we might have students who are direct admits to Kelly, but they don't have any of those other support systems. Mm-hmm. So they might not know what support might mean to them in reference to what we receive. Yeah. And we just have that privilege of having that back support advisors. We have other group students, we have alumni bases that come or that are here for us. But those students who are not within those certain reaches don't necessarily feel like they can take advantage of that. So that's what we need to do as student leaders, is reach out to those students and let them know, regardless, hey, you didn't do groups, that's fine, but we still on this campus, we together.
But I want to challenge you on that, because how, like, I understand like we have to go reach out, but how are you going to reach out from your own comfort zone? Mm-hmm. So are you putting yourself in those spaces that you don't want to be where they are? You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I feel like that we have to grow enough within our own support system to be able to help somebody else out. So like starting, I'm not saying like if you're newly ingrained here and then you start reaching out to everybody else, but I feel like if you're established enough to know what you have in reference to resources and everything like that, if you see black students on campus that need support, they need help. Like sometimes individual help is okay, but sometimes there needs to be programs that are in place that helps out these students who don't come through these programs.
But I feel like I just kind of disagree, because I feel like there are programs. There are a lot of things that the Neil Marshall does. There's a lot of things that DEMA does. Asian Culture Center, LGBTQ, La Casa, right. First Nations. There's a lot of things that they do, but sometimes people don't come out. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, they might not know. They might not be on the listserv. So what I'm asking is, like, can you see yourself stepping outside and maybe going to go study somewhere else where you don't study, where you might be the only black person there, or there might be two of you, and then, you know, hey, I see a brother, I see a sister, going up to them and talking to them and be like, what's your name? Add them in the Black IU chat, you know what I'm saying? Here's the updates. Like, that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, you know, and kind of like more an action plan and execution to what you're saying.
I also disagree with the first part that you said, not that like we're attacking you, but but you said like, you know, you feel like we have to be established in our own support, when I don't feel like that's true. You know, we have to uplift as we climb. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, like, we need to reach out to those people as we're establishing our own support group, like, you know, because they still need it too. Right. So it's not that we get to the top and, you know, I mean, I guess I can help. No, we need to, do this together.
I think it's also like a bigger issue too. It's not just like things that we're doing in our own community and not looking out for each other, like brothers and sisters in the community. But as a university, like what are they doing to make sure that minority groups are, represented in different spaces? Because like literally when you look at the different things like orientation team, I always go back to that because I feel like that just shows you the demographics of IU and like how it's really not fair at all because majority of students come through on groups like a lot of us have, and so like all you see all summer is just like black people in groups. But if you served as orientation leader, you might only have like one black student in your student group the whole summer, and you have several groups that are coming in. So it goes back to like the type of people that IU is admitting to the university, and then while admitting them, like what resources are they giving to us? Are they even help continue to fund these resources, or are they limiting them? Because black people aren't participating in certain events. For example, like the Neil Marshall gets funding for our events and different things like that, but they're also trying to make us keep track by scanning people in because they want to limit the amount of money we get for these events because they feel like a lot of students aren't coming out.
But I'm sorry, I feel like I'm talking.
No, go ahead, keep going.
But there's an entire Office of Diversity, Equity, Multicultural Affairs that serves the population of minorities. Like, I understand, like, but you have to think about, like, what all do we have? Like, you know what I'm saying? And looking at the cup half full and not half empty. Because there are a lot of opportunities that are just for black students. And I just feel like even with the fund, they give out DEMA gives out a lot of money to each of the culture centers. So,
but even like to piggyback off of that, like that's the office that's trying to limit the amount of money that the Neil Marshall is getting for certain events. So like, my question would be like, how is DEMA like benefiting culture centers? Like, are they actually going to the different culture centers events? Are they attending? Are they seeing like the impact that it is having on different students? Because when it comes to like from the Neil Marshall standpoint, it's making it seem like just because only maybe 30 students came out and there's, obviously more black students than that, they're trying to limit what the Neil Marshall can do for certain events, which isn't fair because those 30 people might have, a greater, impact on this event or they gain something. And then these other students are probably in class at work because a lot of us as minorities sometimes have to work an extra job or you have to do different things to get through schooling. So like, as the office of DEMA, like what are they doing to ensure that, students feel that support from them? Because I feel like if you don't know anything about DEMA and what it stands for, then how are you going to go to an office that, you're going to know, like, what's the benefit of this office? What am I getting out of this?
so go ahead.
I would even piggyback off that. I feel like looking at it half full is giving them a cop out to say cap it, to limit it, to say, okay, we've done this, okay, y'all should be able to do this. No, their work should never stop. They're DEMA, they're supposed to represent everybody. As transfer students, they should be doing something to try to get those transfer students to come to the spaces where they are supposed to go, instead of saying, okay, well, the Neil Marshall has this much money, use it. If you don't use it, we're going to take it. That's just giving them a reason to take the money, because it's never going to be enough. It's never going to be, I mean, that's why we don't know about a 2% increase in 3 years, because it's like, okay, we admitting all these students, but then what? Are they letting us know that we didn't even know we had we was at 6.7%?
Yeah, I think that's the middle ground in this whole conversation we're having is how do we communicate to the black student population that we have resources, that we are increasing and things of the sort. Like DEMA wants to cut funding for the Neil Marshall because that's a business, they don't want to lose money. They're giving us a set budget every year and we're utilizing all of it, but it's not being used by the student population. And then there are things that students that don't know about that at our disposal that are specifically for black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, things of the sort. So the stasis of it all is how do we communicate that to those people? I think that's where the failure is on the institution's part, but that's just my perspective.
Because I think like as a freshman, like you guys are saying DEMA and I've heard it before, but I don't know exactly what it is. So it's like, for me to know about something that's supposed to be helping me in my experience, I know nothing of it whatsoever. So there's not much reaching out, I say, really to like students so much to know what that even means.
And I think even just you talking about the half full being like a cop out, I think is really good, because even for when you hear about it, a lot of times you feel like as a black person, once you've gotten somewhere, you feel like it's your job to make sure everyone else gets there. And it's really not, because all that does is add an extra amount of stress, and like you feel like you're supposed to do this, and if you don't do this because you're established or you're not established, then you're like preventing the black growth. which obviously it's a great thing for us to do, but that should just be an add-on, a bonus to what the school and the university is doing because they know it's right.
All right, so let's take a step back really fast. Just a quick, I guess, glance in the audience. Do we have any like directly admitted students in the audience? You can just show your hand.
Does that include us too,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
just?
that's cool. That's cool.
Like now.
Do we have any group students in the audience? Any Hudson Holland scholars? Gotcha. Okay, so to speak on Ramir and Kai's point, I know you all mentioned basically assistants. So although some African American students are directly admitted into the university, many first generation African American students are admitted through the Group Scholars Program. The Group Scholars Program is a need-based scholarship that currently has over 1,300 students on campus, with 45% of that population occupied by the African American student. I know my first feeling on campus was quite a culture shock, because I feel like we created that experience in groups and like we really took over the campus. So like coming to campus and then actually seeing that 40,000 in perspective and noticing that I was really the minority was quite shocking to me. So my question to those that did do groups on the panel, what are the pros and cons of transitioning from a very black atmosphere in groups to a very white atmosphere once the school year started?
I think one pro would definitely be an already established support group. So I already have friends, I already have people who like, I'm in these classes, as freshmen and gen ed classes, we're probably taking the same classes. I have somebody to study with. I have somebody to lean on and support. I have the group scholars office, for tutoring and for fellowship, and for programs. So I already have that established support. And I think that's one of my biggest pros.
Yeah.
I think one of the, which again, that to get at that point, but I think a big con of it is that a pro too, is that when you're in these classes, when you're taking the groups class, you don't have to worry about a teacher making a microaggression at you or anything like that. As opposed to when you do get in these predominantly white spaces, they say, oh, you'll be the only black kid in the classroom, but when you don't think about that at all, but then when you actually get there, you're like, damn.
Ain't nobody coming.
Ain't no, hey, and you're just sitting there and you just feel alone. And that's the thing, is that the groups program does a great thing at making you not feel so alone when you're here in the summertime. But once you get to the school year, it's a far different experience. Even when you get to living your living situations, when you live on your floors, there's not that many people. It's far and few between. And they say it a lot, but you really don't actually see their experience until you get into the school year, which is the sad part.
For me, I feel like the high school I went to was predominantly white. And then I went to groups, and I was accepted to IU without groups, but I felt like it was crucial, for what you're saying. I was like, I need this in my life. So I went to groups, and I loved it. And then when school started, I don't know if it's because I gave myself this cushion over the summer, it just made me forget what it felt like to be the only black person in the room. Wow. So when I came back, I don't know if it was because now for the last 2 months or 6-week program, I felt spoiled, or if it was because when you're at a university, you feel you truly want to be here. It's not like high school, so it's when things around you, the microaggressions and stuff, you feel like it's really someone is trying to stunt your growth. And so it makes you feel this overwhelming amount of stress. And then at least if you were back home, wherever you're at, it's okay, but then you come home and you're comfortable again. But then here, you're just here. So I felt like that was the pro and the con, I guess.
Well, see, the good thing about, I would say, is that the high school that I went to was really diverse. And we had 3,400 kids. We went to Pike High School. And it's even in those aspects, in those spaces, you see a lack of representation when it comes to faculty and stuff like that, because we still had 3,400 kids, and most of them were predominantly black, but the teachers that you see are predominantly still white. So in that aspect, that didn't shock me coming here. But coming from that, then coming to groups and that transition, I was like, okay, it's pretty comfortable for me. But then when we get here, it really just pushes you out of your comfort zone, because you see literally the lack of representation when you even look at the faculty and the staff when it comes to the university. And to me, that's the biggest critique, because that's something that they have direct control over. Where it's the students that they have that come into the school, okay, completely understand, that changes, it varies. But the faculty, a lack of representation even in the staff does so much more to a student than I feel than you actually not seeing a peer that's there, because if they're not represented in these spaces in higher education, how is that giving me a good depiction of what it is that I have something to look out for? Right. And that's something, especially because I'm in the School of Education, and I don't know how many it is, but I probably can count on 2 hands how many black men that there are in education. And then on top of that, how many black people are in the school altogether, you can probably count on, well, my fingers and your toes altogether.
I would say a pro and a con to groups is definitely the living situation. So I've served as an RA for groups as well as for the academic year. And in groups, it's just like, you know, the RAs are always there. It's a constant support system. You have multiple RAs on your floor that know your name, that know what you like. You know what I mean? We built that connection with the students just to make sure their living experience for the summer is the best. So when you get to the academic year, it's like, okay, I'm on this floor and I expect my RA to be like my group's RA, and that's not the case. Because half the time on floors, RAs don't even know their residents' names. So then, like being a former RA and being an RA in the school year, you get the double S, or you get your residents from groups and you get your residents in the school year, and they're like, well, Carrington, dang, I don't know my RA. My RA's never said anything to me, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like we create this environment during groups, and then in the school year, it's kind of hard to keep that same environment and keep those residents engaged in those floors, because it's like, I don't have any representation. My RA doesn't know my name, so why do I want to live here? Why do I want to be here? You know what I mean? So we're shaping that experience for them, and it's kind of a pro and a con.
Yeah, I think groups accomplishes two things at once. I think deliberately and then inadvertently. The structure of it sets you up for success, right? For that 6-week program, academically, socially, accountability measures, and they're all the whole nine. Set you up for success, but at the same time, that form of success gives you a false reality of what IU actually is. I mean, it's predominantly black. You have a whole different like living schedule. Classes aren't the same. But if you're not aware of what you're about to get into to the fall, then it's a culture shock, right? So like for me personally, I was very concerned about going to a black college. Like my intention was to go to Morehouse or Howard, but IU fits my pockets a lot better. So I made sure to like take those measures that, for instance, my first day of groups, I found out who the BSU president was and emailed her. BSU doesn't exist during groups, it's a school year activity, but I emailed her my very first day on campus. My first day back during welcoming, I went to the Black Culture Center. It wasn't even open, but I came here and walked around and toured it myself. Like, I knew I was going to a school where it was 4% black people, leaving an environment where it's like 50%, and I need to be ready for that. I need to have so rooted in a black family before I continue my experience in this white world. So if students aren't aware of that coming into groups or going into the school year, then it's definitely going to be a culture shock, and it's definitely going to seem like groups as a con in the social aspect of it.
I would also have to agree with Magda, because I myself did grow up in a predominantly white area, and so coming to groups was fun. I had a good time. And then I got back in the fall and I forgot I had a code switch. So I forgot all about my code switching techniques and had to like readjust my life basically and readjust my attitude and, oh wait, can't say this because, you know, can't listen to this out loud.
I mean, but why not?
So how do you feel about that? Because some people say when you code switch too much, all you're doing is like forcing yourself to assimilate into the culture that's already there and not allowing your culture to come up.
Oh, wow.
Question.
So how I feel about code switching was, I mean, this is, I just have a lot of experiences with code switching because that's how I grew up.
Yeah.
So I grew up a white girl and a black girl's
No, I
body.
feel you. You're like, hi.
So I'm like, hello. I grew up singing Redneck Woman, country, Taylor Swift. But I'm telling y'all, honestly, don't raise your kids in the suburbs. And I'm just gonna be real with you because
Take 'em to a boys'
they end
club.
up, they end up not like knowing. And my experiences was just like, for a long time, like you're black. You know what I'm saying? And so I just feel like I grew up code switching. I grew up an Oreo. I grew up talking super proper and always having adults, white people and black people alike, telling me, you're so proper and the way that you speak is really nice and all this stuff. So I don't, like, that's just me. And I mean, I got clowned when I went to IPS schools for 2 years. Let's not talk about that. They clowned me. I got ate up because you talk like a white girl. It's like, you know what I'm saying? But that's just you know what I'm saying? That's just how I am. I didn't really learn how to be black. So the code switching thing, that's just, it is a part of my personality. I grew up in Zionsville, Indiana from 3 to 14.
I think the sad part about that is that acknowledging is that like at some point you're gonna have to do it. Like it's not that you have the option like, oh, I can just be myself 2300 all the time, whenever. Because in order to get ahead, you're gonna have to assimilate or conform in some instances. Because if you don't have certain titles behind your name, you're never going to get the same respect. Because I can't go in there using my black vernacular, as if they would say.
Well,
and
that word. You better use vernacular.
Period. And expect to get ahead in any way. So I think what I have to do all the time is I have to talk 10 times smarter or show them that I can put a sentence together and my sentence fluency is out of this world or something like that. For me to even be looked at as on the same level.
So then do you feel like it's just that you have to wait till you made it? So like could Obama have now been like, well, now I can talk about
I'm smoking Newport's kid. Like,
For me, it was definitely learn. I learned how to code switch. Like when I got here, I was just me. I didn't. So my first email to my professor, I was like, "What's up?" I didn't know what that was. I'm like, this is a text message. You know what I mean? So when he emailed me back and was like, "That is not how you email," I was like, "Oh." You know what I mean? It's the real deal. So it's learning, especially then becoming a leader and learning, like Kai was definitely saying, when you want to become a leader, you feel like you have to. So you feel like you have to, greetings, you know what I mean? Like you gotta throw that in there, throw that extra sentence in there just to make yourself equal the playing field, so.
To go off of that, I would say, speaking from my O-Team experience, O-Team makes things very white, so they feel like you have to be white 24/7. And so I would say with O-Team, they say treat every day as the first show, so like every day is the first show. So like you starting with a whole new group of students, you like, hey, I'm Johnny, how you doing? Hey, welcome. But then like, that's day one, and then you get to about like day 5, and it's like, hold on, like Johnny, where you at? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So at the same time, code switching is good and bad at the same time because you kind of will forget about, your values and morals as a person. And so like I learned through O-Team that like, even though I might be in this white space, I'm gonna navigate blackly. I'm gonna be black in this white space, you feel me? So I'm gonna continue to be me, and be me as a person. I'm not about to just conform to this, space as they want me to. Literally every day they would want you to be, all, jittery and excited, but it's like, okay, hold on. Let me tell you about yesterday where, I only seen like one black person in somebody else's student group that wasn't even in my student group. So let me tell you how that made me feel today. Even though this might be your first day, this is my, 10th day here, and I haven't seen anybody black coming through IU. I'm going to Wright, and they want us to mingle at dinner, so I'm sitting down talking to families, but at the same time, nobody can really relate to me. I'm giving them an experience that they don't know nothing about. And then you got your staff members in the back like, Mingle Bells, this meant Mingle Bells. So it's like, when it is a black family, it was a black family at Wright. Anytime that I didn't have a black family, I'm like, I'm going to them. I'm about to go talk to them. So then you sitting there, you talking to like a mama, like, you're like, you didn't met your auntie or your cousin and you chilling. And then after a while, they in the back like, Mingle Bells. And it's like, I don't want to go talk to them because they have all these other people on staff that they're going to be able to relate to. They're not going to be able to get the same experience. So,
One
we
thing.
gotta look at the power of code switching, or like what it really should be used for. You shouldn't code switch to conform. I kind of disagree with the notion that code switching is for conforming. It's to look like you're conforming and still navigate blackly and still be black within that. So like the power of code switching is I can use that to navigate this space of O-Team or this white institution in general, and then give myself 2 situations where I can then be myself. So there's no conforming involved in code switching. There's a veil. You're a chameleon. And I feel like we can't lose sight of that. And I feel like this word code switching been thrown around a lot this whole conversation. I meant to ask, like, when are y'all code switching and what do y'all mean by code switching? Because I can change the way I talk, I can change my vernacular at any moment, but I'm never gonna stop being as pro-black as I was when I'm saying the N-word with my homies or saying power with my white boss.